We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Hello there, and welcome to another edition of Free Association Radio. It's the Friday edition. It's the Friday the 13th edition. And this is Robert Phoenix, your host, broadcasting to you live from Central Texas, where the harp rains are coming down nicely. We had a kind of a blitzkrieg of rain earlier this morning, and quickly it abated, and now we are into the slow drizzle. It's been a very aggressive harp atmosphere over the course of the last 48 hours. Chemtrails crisscrossing the sky like a piece of postmodern art, painted in our atmosphere. So today's show should be pretty interesting. By the way, it's good to be back on the air. I think the last time I did this was last Friday when we had Andrew Norton Weber on, and what a show! What a stir that show caused. Blah, blah, blah. I had one of my listeners / readers decide to follow Andrew's instructions, and guess what? She's had a supernatural experience, like life-changing. Like Rubicon, crossing it, life-changing experience. And if you go to my website, robertphoenix.com, I actually write about it to some extent, because I thought her testimonial was quite interesting. Now, I'm not quite there yet. I am drinking distilled water. In fact, I drink distilled water every morning, and I'm starting to cook with it, so I'm moving into that phase. And I have a big water dispenser. I don't have a Berkey. I'd like to, but I have a big water dispenser. The urn, the 5-gallon jugs, and there are these water machines at Whole Foods here in town. You can actually get 5 gallons worth of distilled water out of these machines. So once I cycle through my spring water, which is non-fluoridated, I'm going to go for I want to switch. So I'm going distilled, and I'm not sure if I'm ready to go to Orenville yet. And if I do, you probably won't know anyway. There are some things that are just better kept secret. Although I remember when I was a kid, there was a guy who ran India after Gandhi. His name was Desai. And I remember as a kid somehow finding out that Desai drank his own pee. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. And then I noticed that he was Indian, and I was trying to determine whether or not he was turning yellow because he was consuming his urine, or pee, as we called it as a kid, or when I was a kid. So today's show is going to be pretty interesting. We're gonna go far and wide today. We're gonna talk about Bigfoot. I've been wanting to talk about Bigfoot for quite a while on this show, and I've had a couple of people approach me about Bigfoot and tell me that either their friend or their colleague is somebody who's been out in the wild, has tracked Bigfoot, has seen Bigfoot. For some reason, I haven't decided not to bring them on for whatever reason. And then my first guest was brought to my attention by Lynn Bailey, who's a good friend of the show and a dear friend of Michael Edward. So I decided to follow up on Lynn's suggestion, and we're going to bring Thomas on here in just a moment, and he's going to get into Bigfoot. We're going to find out all about Bigfoot. In fact, I might even open up the lines. If you have any questions about Bigfoot, I'm sure Thomas will be able to answer them. And then in the second hour, I spoke with Dr. Sam Samir Osmanagich, and he is the Indiana Jones of these Bosnian pyramids. Now, there's some controversy about these Bosnian pyramids. There's an image I have on the show page, and it truly looks like a massive pyramid. It reminds me of Mount Kailash in northern India, which also looks like a giant pyramid as well. Now, there are some claims that it could be a hoax. So just know that going into the interview, and I'll address that again when we get closer to the interview. That's in the second part of the show. All right, let's get into this. Let's start talking about Bigfoot and bring all 6'7" of them onto the show. Here's Thomas Hughes. Hello, Thomas. Hello there.
Hello, Robert.
Hey, how are you, my friend?
Can you hear me? I'm doing fine. You hear me okay?
I can hear you pretty well. You're kind of breaking up just a little bit. Let's talk for a while and see how it goes, okay?
Sure.
Okay. All right, you sound good now. Well, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. And I think probably the best place to start around all of this is you told me yesterday that you're a large man, 6'7", and you had an experience when you were struck by lightning. And I didn't. This was when you were younger, and I didn't really follow up on that because I wanted to actually ask you live on the show, and I wanted to ask you when that happened, how that happened, and did it change your life in any shape or form?
Well, in 1992, I had a dream that I forgot about. In the dream, it was raining really hard when I got home. And I parked in the driveway, and at that time I normally parked on the street. And so I parked in the driveway because it was raining so hard, and I ran for the door. It was that time of day where my mother should be home. So I went ahead and parked in the driveway. She parked in the garage. That's why I usually park on the street. So I went upstairs and was sitting on my queen-size bed when my father's voice rang out. Thomas, come move your car. Your mom's home. So I ran outside and moved the car. She pulled into the garage. I pulled back into the driveway. I jumped.
Hey, Thomas? Thomas? Okay, he's gone. I sound all right. Thomas, call back in. You broke up on me here. It was a little patchy, wasn't it? I hope Thomas can call back in, because that was sounding like a very interesting story. It was just a little muffled and not sounding great. So hopefully Thomas can call back in and get off the Skype line. Anybody else been struck by lightning? I met Daniel Brinkley one time. He's been struck by lightning at least twice. I think maybe 3 times now. Somebody's calling in. Who's this? Hello there. Hello? They're just listening. Well, this show is getting off to a great start, isn't it? Friday the 13th. It's not a bad day. Most people have read the website, my website, heard me talk about it. That Friday the 13th is really that fateful day in history when the Knights Templar got slaughtered in the south of France, and as a result, Jacques de Molay died at the hands of the French and the Pope. So therefore, from that point forward, Friday the 13th became a dark day. All right, this might be Thomas. Let's try to plug him back in here. Hello there.
Yes, hello.
Hey, Thomas, is this you?
Yes, my internet's playing up, so I went ahead and just called in on the house phone.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You sound much better now. Thanks for doing that. Let's get back into your story. Your dad was asking you to go move your car.
Yes, I went upstairs and I just grabbed my keys, and out the door I went, and I moved the car out of the driveway. She pulled into the garage. I pulled back into the driveway. I jumped out of my car and ran for the front door. And as I was running for the front door, that's when I was hit in the head by a lightning bolt, and the dream ended. So I woke up and I said it out loud verbally. I said, wow, I'm glad that hasn't happened. That's not something I would choose to ever have happen. Not realizing what I was saying or what was going on. 2 weeks later, almost identical to what happened in the dream, I stopped by a Blockbuster Video on the way home, and I rented a couple of tapes to watch, because it was VCRs back then. It had started raining while I was there, and so I drove home, and it was raining even worse, really coming down. And I made it home, and I parked in the driveway, totally forgetting about the dream that I'd had. I parked and ran for the door and made it inside, and was sitting there on my bed trying to decide which Blockbuster Video I wanted to watch first, when my father's voice rang out. Thomas, come move your car, your mom's home. And that still didn't click. And so I put the tapes down, and I grabbed my keys, and out the door I ran and moved my car. She pulled into the garage. I pulled back into the driveway, ran all the way for the door, and made it just fine. In fact, I made it all the way back upstairs to my queen-size bed and was sitting on it, trying to decide which Blockbuster Video to watch first. I was reading the backs of them, the description of the film. And I had a ham radio set up right there in my room, and that's when a lightning bolt struck the antenna on the back side of the house. It came down the antenna wire, which I had disconnected from the radios at this point. It arced once. I turned and looked at it right before it hit. I saw it arc, and then it flipped the cable over, and it arced again, and the second time that it arced, it hit me in the right foot and threw me across the room.
Wow. So
yeah,
you had a slight derivation on an event that happened in the future. So instead of it happening outside, it happened inside. Instead of it hit the foot obviously symbolically is related to the sign of Pisces, which is the seat of the soul, S-O-L-E or S-O-U-L. And then what happened?
Well, at that point, it was a couple of days later before I remembered that I had a dream that was almost identical to what happened here. And I was very fully aware that that was a wake-up call, as if to say that, hey boy, you're going down the wrong path, pay attention. Because I was starting to get into some, shall we say, dark stuff at that point in my waking up process. So that kind of changed directions for me. The interesting part about that is I was a barometer for thunderstorms for a couple of years after that. Anytime a thunderstorm was coming to Houston, about a half an hour before it would get there, the arch of my right foot would start throbbing, so I knew it was coming.
So this is after you got struck by lightning?
Yes.
Okay, so what happened? Did you have to go to the hospital? Were you unconscious? What was your physical condition like after this occurred?
No, I was wide awake, and I was once I was able to get on my one foot that didn't hurt like hell. I hopped out of that room into the game room upstairs and was laying on the couch inspecting my foot because it hurt like hell, and I figured flesh had been blown off or something, but nothing. It hurt right down into the bone. It hurt. Later on, I found out that there was a water line right underneath that runs right underneath the floor where my bedroom was upstairs, and so it grounded. It went straight to that. It just passed through me, but it went to that water pipe and went to ground that way.
So, did you notice any change in your abilities to perceive? Besides the fact that you had perceived that you needed to change your life, did you begin to experience any kind of extrasensory powers or gifts or anything that goes along with that?
Well, that's what's really interesting. In 1991, early 91, I met a woman who was my first mentor, and she's still a friend of mine. Her name's Rusty, and I was learning things from her, and I was learning some, shall we say, less than desirable ways to exercise what I'm able to do. And that's what the whole lightning bolt strike was about, because I was really starting to get into some dark stuff that was not good. That's not going to be in this reality that we're going to.
So after that, were you able to recalibrate? And because you're talking about in some ways the left-hand path versus the right-hand path, were you able to recalibrate and use some of those things that you've been developing to, I guess, to use them for the good or for your own benefit, or for other people's benefit as well?
Certainly, and it was never about left or right or wrong or good or bad or anything like that. It was, after that, it was always the balance, staying right in the center. Because that's the, in the game of chess, the most advantageous place to be is that of the chessboard, because the chessboard can see everything. Whereas if you're just a piece on the chessboard, you can only see the moves that you can make as a piece on that chessboard.
That makes sense.
So that's where it took me.
Okay. Let's jump forward. Let's start talking about Bigfoot. When did Bigfoot enter your life?
That happened in late April of 2008 is when I saw the female in person just 50 feet away from me.
Okay. And how did that come about?
Well, back in February of 2008, I sat in my office outside, and I closed my eyes and I said, I don't know who's listening, but I'm done. D-U-U-N, done. And I spelled it that way to emphasize just how done I was. And so I said the word but at that point. That was the open mouth insert foot moment. I said, but if you want to stick around for any number of reasons, you have to give me at least one reason to get up every day. And it was 2.5 months later, I saw the Sasquatch female in person, and the next morning I woke up and thought, I said it out loud, I said, well, there's a reason to get up every day. So
were
I'm still here.
Were you out walking in the woods, or how did this encounter manifest itself?
I had gone down to my family's place at, I guess it was about 5:45 in the morning. So I had the full moon off to the west and the rising sun off to the east. And there was enough light to where I could see individual trees in the woods instead of just a big black mass. And so I saw her just slowly jog between a stand of trees 50 feet away while I was walking down a dirt road. And I said the words out loud at that point. I said, my God, how can anyone call them a monster? She's gorgeous. And she is.
So this, I'm assuming, was in Texas. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And how could you infer that it was a she versus a he?
Because there were visible breasts that I could see on the front of her body.
Okay. And about how tall would you say that this Sasquatch was?
She's about my height, about 6.5 feet tall.
Okay, so pretty tall. Did she notice you noticing her?
Yeah, she was looking right at me as it was almost like I think of a NFL player and how they turn their upper body sideways to catch a ball and their feet are still going in the direction they want to go in. So her upper body was turned somewhat towards me, and she was running between the stand of trees, which is about 50 feet of distance, and just kind of jogging. And so she was looking right at me, and the light was enough to where I could see the stomach muscles underneath the hair, the six-pack, if you will.
Now,
that's how much light there was.
How long ago did this occur?
That was in end of April of 2008.
Okay. And how many times have you had a Sasquatch encounter since then?
I've seen them 12 times during the daylight, and more than 15 times I've seen their silhouettes at night, fairly close to me, within 50 feet.
And this is in the same general area that you saw the first Sasquatch?
Yes.
Okay, so now you've seen quite a few of them. Do you think you've seen just a few of the same, or do you think that there are a large number of Sasquatch living in a community or a group? What's your take on that?
Well, the thing that and this is where people will think I'm absolutely crazy, and I'm fine with that. Nobody was ready for a straitjacket in a rubber room more than me when this first started. But the evidence kept racking up. And, you'd have to be a fool to try and deny evidence. In any case, I enjoy what I call mind speak with the hairy folks. And I've had that physically validated several times. In fact, it's a standard operating procedure for me to ask for validation whenever information is given to me, so that I don't run amok, as it were. In any case, what they conveyed to me is that they were a sub-tribe of a much larger tribe, which is more over towards Chuck Norris's ranch. Chuck Norris his ranch is about 3 miles from me to the east.
Okay.
And he's got 5,000 acres over there, and that's where the main tribe lives at. So
this is a community that you tapped into. What other things have they shared with you via the Mind Speak?
Via the Mind Speak, because there was a lot of kids around, a lot of young Sasquatch, kids. And I can sure tell you that the old saying, kids will be kids, really applies to their kids. Anyway, the reason why what I tapped into was a sub-tribe is because that's where the nursery is, if you want to call it that. They foster their children out to other tribes because if a child only learns one way, he's not fully beneficial to the tribe. So they send them out to learn from others in their growing cycle. That was a daycare center or a fostering center for the kids that they take care of or look after.
Interesting. So you literally stumbled upon like their version of a daycare center.
Pretty much.
Okay. So I'm curious, have they, excuse me, about to sneeze. Have they told you anything about their origins or who they are or where they came from, why they're here, why they remain in secret? I guess I can answer that one myself, but what sort of intimate details about their life and their lifestyle and their origin have they shared with you, if any?
Well, many of the things they share with me are based on the questions I ask them. So I've learned to be very specific with my wording and my intentions towards the questions I'm asking them. When I asked Shona, the female Sasquatch that I interact with, when I asked her where she came from, she showed me because she didn't have vibrations or words that would make sense in my head at the time. So I was seeing, what I was seeing was a canyon or a valley that's probably anywhere from 400 to 1,000 feet deep because it's very long. It's fed by hot springs. Even when it's the coldest wintertime, it is still temperate enough down in there because of the hot springs for vegetation to grow year-round, which I found fascinating. And when I looked at this, when she was putting these images in my head and I was looking at it, the impression I got was that it was in the Yukon of Canada or Alaska. I could not tell which. I could not ascertain or determine exactly where it was. Now, it took me a couple of years, but I finally put the pieces of the puzzle together. And if anybody goes to Google and puts in Headless Valley, it's also called the Nahanni Valley. There is a Nahanni Provincial Park in Canada. It's in the Yukon, and it's parallel or right next door to Alaska. And the Nahanni Valley is a gorge fed by hot springs that runs a little over 200 miles in length, ranging from 400 to 1,000 feet deep. So I was sitting there going, wow, talk about validation.
That's really interesting. So they actually migrated down from that region originally?
No, she came down here. I later on found out why, but she knew that there was work she had to do down here, and so at 15 years of physical age, she set off on her journey, and she was escorted by males of the tribe. Wherever she was at, there would be males that would escort her to the next tribe and make sure that no problems occurred with her. So when she got down here, there was a male escorting her, a male that suffers from migraines. And he had a migraine and fell to his knees while he was escorting her, and she laid her hands on his head and took the migraine away, and in that connection, that's when she saw the life that she was to live with him, and so she stayed. She didn't know how far south she was going, but she was going south. She knew that where she was supposed to be was somewhere down here.
That's quite a bit of detail. But the rest of the the tribe themselves, they're not from that part of the world. So they are indigenous to this area. Is that what they've shared with you?
Yeah, they've shared with me that we, humans and their kind, and all the life that's here, have shared this planet the way we're sharing it for around 500,000 years, ever since the war spilled over into this galaxy. And I may be going too far off on a sidetrack here.
Go as far as you want to go, man. Let's see where we can take this.
As I continued to communicate with them about where they're from, I wanted to know not just where they're from physically, but where they originated from, where they came from. And so they showed me again, images of a dying planet, and they were able to site here. In other words, teleport or transport is how they did it. Of course, no technology involved because the skin suit we live in is the actual technology. But in any case, they came here from a dying world, and it broke apart, and everybody was able to get off there that wanted to get off the planet before it broke apart. So I started doing research again. I started doing digging to find out if there was anything about this in the human world. And so what I found is that the Kuiper's belt, the asteroid belt outside of Mars, used to be a planet. That's why the Kuiper's belt, why that whole asteroid belt follows the exact orbital pattern of a planet.
Right.
And so where they sighted, some of them went to Mars, and most of them came on here to Earth because of what was going on in this little part of the Milky Way.
So is that planet, which is in the Kuiper belt, the asteroid belt, which some people believe is either Marduk or Maldek, is that the planet they're from?
Yeah, Maldek.
Okay.
Maldek was their home world in this solar system. Other people lived on Mars. We can go into that at another time. And of course, humans were here, and this was all set up as an experiment here on this planet. When the war spilled over into this solar system, it was called a halt to all the destruction because there was a lot of idiocy going on. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm. So the war that you're talking about, I'm assuming, would be with the Orions and the Draconians, or who was fighting it out?
Well, there were several beings involved. But yes, the Draco and Hydra reptilians and the Orion Greys, because they were subjugated and still are. Also, the Archons were part of that as well.
Now, I've actually asked James Gilliland about the Archons and to get greater clarity and understanding about who they are, where they originated from. And he describes them as more of a network. Who do you think the Archons are?
Well, the Archons are a network. They can also come into physical beings. And even if they are in a physical body, they are still connected to that network. An excellent movie to show people, because they're showing people nowadays, which is really kind of surprising to me. But a really great movie to detail some of the things that they've done is John Carter.
Yes.
I don't know if you've seen that movie or not.
I have. It's actually a really good movie.
Okay, well, the thrall in that movie are the Archons.
Okay.
Because they always wanted to keep everything in balance, and in so doing, they would use a species on that planet to their benefit. Mm-hmm. So that's exactly why they were part of the experiment here.
I see. So what role does Bigfoot play in all this?
Well, the hairy folks, as I call them, were forced to come here on the home world that they'd chosen in this solar system. And so they live here with us, and as part of the experiment was set up, everything is balanced. So if the Draco and the Hydra reptilians are going to take an active part in this and do what they've done, the Sasquatch people are going to be right there next to them, balancing out what they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's why certain things have occurred and why certain things have not.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, back in 1983, Peter Moon wrote about this, and he interviewed the witnesses that were at the Montauk Project in 1983.
Mm-hmm.
And what they described, they saw a hairy man that looked like a monster. He walked out of the woods, put his hands on the building where all the energy was coming from in the Montauk Project, turned the same color as the building, and got the energy to go back into the ground. And then he walked back into the woods. And Peter Moon and I, we've talked quite a bit, and he's like, that was not a monster, that was a Sasquatch. I said, yeah, I know. But every 20 years, the energy from the Montauk Project echoes back on itself. So no one knows what happened in 1963. In 83, that happened. And then in 2003, they covered it up because that was a perfect chance for them to raise the price of gas and keep raising it at that point, because the power grid, electricity, got wiped out for the entire New England coast and parts of Canada because of that energy from the Montauk Project.
Interesting. So, what do you think the net result of the Sasquatch coming in and grounding that energy into the ground? Was he preventing something from taking place, or what was going on there?
Yeah, I'm not sure what he prevented that day. I know he was that particular individual. I've mind spoke with him briefly, and he was a kid when the original Philadelphia experiment took place. And so he had to witness the things that humans are doing. And so by the time he's, in his late 40s, early 50s, and this is going on again, he's like, I know, it's not going to happen this time. And he walked out of the woods and shut it down. He stopped it.
Interesting. How long does a Sasquatch live? What's the lifespan?
Typically, their age in this density of reality is between 120 and 140 years. 120 to 140.
That's a pretty good run.
Yes, it is.
I think I'd like to be able to live between 120 and 140, because I think I'm just starting to figure this Earth thing out now in this lifetime. I'm about halfway through. That's how it works sometimes. Have they given you any indication as to why they have decided to connect with you and contact you specifically?
Well, one of the things that they've showed me is how this is all wrapping up, how the experiment is coming to an end. They've managed to get it back on schedule, not just him, but our star family. That's here now. And so everything is wrapping up. And so when you look at the lifeline on my hand, which I've had more than one reader see this, there's a split in my lifeline, and that's the split that I'm on right now, because it's getting close to ending, because everything here is wrapping up. So if things had not been adjusted or taken care of, as it were, then I would have probably lived to be 80 or 90 years old in this body.
And you're saying that that's not going to take place?
No, I know it's not going to take place. I've had multiple sclerosis since 2001, and this body is just about failed. I have a hard time just walking.
So what does that bode for the rest of us and the planet and the experiment?
Well, and I've been saying this since 2010 when I had my own radio show here on Blog Talk Radio. The only thing that stands in front of everyone is choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody was so scared about December 21st and all that panic and craze that was going on over there. I kept telling everyone, look, the only thing that's in front of you is choice. So, really, people are making their choices whether they realize it consciously in the body or not. If money is their God, that's kind of a choice.
Mm-hmm.
But if the world around them and the things they do, and they know that the things they do affect the world around them, and they want to be part of the world around them, they want to be part of the we instead of just a me. That's a choice as well. So everyone who's ready to go back to being part of the we is staying here, and everybody who thinks it's all about me is going to be going somewhere else. To kind of like a schoolhouse.
Right. And do you think that you'll be around for that?
I won't be in this body.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be in the body that I came here from.
Do you think that the Sasquatch will have more contact with humans as we get closer to this event horizon that you're talking about?
Yeah, because we'll all be a part of the we again. What they've shown me is that the population of this planet is going to go up to somewhere around 30 billion because there's going to be so many of our star families here wanting to learn what happened because they haven't gone through this limitation like we have.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot of people.
Oh, yes, it is.
There is this commonly held notion that Bigfoot / Sasquatch does not smell very well. Can you attest to that?
Well, yes, some of them are rather aromatic, and a lot of them are not because they do bathe. Now, one thing that goes on is those of us in the know, we call it skunking. Because they have scent glands very similar to a skunk, but it's not near as potent as a skunk is. But you can smell it. It's one of the ways to know that they're around is you'll smell that. When they get nervous, they tend to emit that odor whether they want to or not. So you could smell it. And yes, I've smelled that before. I've had them come very close to me.
So does Chuck Norris know about these Sasquatch?
I don't know if he does or not. I would love to talk to him. I keep hoping to catch him in town here one day at the Pizza Hut or something. But he's got 5,000 acres out there. One of the photographs I have on my computer is my Apache brother that started this with me. He's a independent plumber, and he was working at a location. They were new construction. He was putting the plumbing. And he was out there by himself on this building that he was working on. And he's out there for several days. But for 3 days in a row, he'd set his lunch, pull it out of his truck, and set it on some cinder blocks close to where he was working, and go back to finishing up what he was doing. Then he'd turn around and his lunch would be gone. And he'd be looking everywhere for his lunch. What happened to my lunch? And that's when he'd look over in some bushes next to a large pine tree, and there'd be a little guy there about 4 feet tall. And the little guy would go, ha! And run off in the woods with his lunch. So, my Apache brother, being part Apache, he can be mischievous, and so he went home and made a sandwich specifically for this little guy with 3 X-Lax tablets in it and left it for him. And that's what he left out there on the cinder block, and the little guy stole it again. And then he went and got in his truck and got his lunch out, so he didn't have to go hungry. And the little guy never tried to steal his lunch again. And they got along great after that. But that would be the Ewok type from Return of the Jedi. Usually between 3 and 4 feet tall.
Now, is this a different species altogether?
I don't know. In human society, do we call midgets a different species?
Nope.
Right.
Yeah. So they're part of the same group. They just have a different stature within that group, so to speak.
Yeah, that's why I call them Ewoks. They're more like Ewoks from Return of the Jedi, and they're very mischievous. Down in Central and South America, they call them Tato Duende. Tata Duende. I'll get it out in a moment. And they practical jokes and pranks are the biggest thing they do to humans all the time. So you can read about them if you put in Tata Duende. You'll find it.
Interesting.
They're down there.
Would this correspond in some ways with some of the tales that we have of gnomes or sprites or elementals of the forest? Or is that where this kind of crosses over a little bit?
Well, sure. Everything that has ever been talked about in history or folklore or whatever exists somewhere. In October of 2010, I had 15 people that descended on my family's place and camped out down there for a week. And I was sitting on the pier at the pond with 2 women, one from Washington State and one from Connecticut. And I'll email you the photograph, but they were seeing something, and they were talking to each other, and it would phase in and out. They could see it, then it was transparent, and then they couldn't see it, and then they'd see it again. So finally the woman from Washington State sitting next to me, she started elbowing me, saying, look, and because I was looking at the ground. I looked over at her and I said, I don't have to look to know that he's there. Besides that, I'm worried about tripping and falling on one of them. And she knew at that moment that I knew exactly what she was looking at, and she folded open her cell phone and took a picture of him. So I've got it, and he's about 18 inches tall.
That's tiny.
Yeah, the Mohawk Indians, the Mohawk Indians in the New England states area, they called them brownies. The Nez Perce Indians over around Washington State on the Pacific Northwest, they called them rainbow people. And the Irish people all the way around the world called them leprechauns.
Interesting. Now, these are apart from the Ewok types, correct?
Correct.
Right. Have they shared anything with you about anything that has to do with other extraterrestrials?
That has come gradually, and I actually have contact with some off-worlders at this point. Off-worlders, because I call them that instead of aliens. They haven't crossed any borders that I know of, and they don't have any paperwork that's necessary, so I just call them off-worlders.
Right.
So when I first started enjoying Mindspeak with Shona, I asked her a question. And my question to her was, do you interact with or ever get on the ships from off-worlders? And her immediate answer to me was, you're not ready for that knowledge, which is kind of an answer in itself.
Right.
I said, okay, fair enough. I left it alone.
Interesting. Is there anything else that you want to share about this connection with the Sasquatch?
Well, You know, what I can say about this is anybody can have the kind of connection that I have. It's not hard. It's really not. You just have to be willing to overcome your own fear and respect them as much as they respect you. The very minimum respect that people require or ask for is respect my free will. And so respecting their free will is just as important.
Yeah, absolutely. What about, have they shared with you anything about how they're portrayed in our society?
Yes, that's something that I've discussed with them at times, and that's why they're so careful or cautious about things that go on. However, they realize that I'm here because they're part of the people that asked me to come here again. I didn't want to be here. I still don't want to be here. And so since I have gone through what I've gone through for the last 5 years plus, I'm here doing a job, so to speak. And the main focus of my job is to answer people's questions and make them aware of their own choices or their own decisions as much as I can. Basically, just turn the light switch on in the dark room.
Have you shared this with your family?
Yes, and that was, I've taken more flack and ridicule over the last 5 years than I did in the previous 38 years of life, so it hasn't been very fun.
Well, I can imagine that you would have some challenges because it's just kind of inherent in the path that we're on here.
And if you check your email, I sent you the 3 different photographs of the little guy. It's in your email there, so you can do whatever you'd like to with that.
Okay. Well, I'll go in and check that out. So I'm actually having a little bit of a challenge with Blog Talk right now and trying to transition and get to the next segment here, but I'm going to try to figure that out in the meantime. Well, Thomas, I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing your information and your knowledge and having the bravery and courage to do that, because it's not an easy thing to do. And I'm certainly open-minded, and I feel like it would be in our best interest to embrace these possibilities. And I'll tell you what, I'll go into that email and I'll add some pictures to the show page, and we'll cap it off and make this a complete experience. How does that sound?
That sounds like a winner to me. One of the things I wanted to discuss before I go is a woman that I was working with in Mississippi earlier this year. One night I was on the phone with her real late, and she asked a Sasquatch male in the area, she asked him where we were going tonight. And he told her, and she said, "Thomas?" I said, "Yes." She goes, "He's saying that we're going to the pyramid, underneath the pyramid in Bosnia." I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah." I said, that sounds like it's going to be fun. She said, "Is there a pyramid in Bosnia?" I said, "Yes, there is." She said, "Where the hell's Bosnia?" I said, "It's about 2 shakes of a squirrel's tail from Russia," and I had her get on the internet and start looking. She didn't even know there was a pyramid there. But that's where we went that night.
So you went to the pyramids in Bosnia?
The soul I am, yes.
Okay, so I can't let you go without talking about that.
Okay.
What was that like?
There is probably about 15 stories underground in the same pattern as what's on top as it goes down. There are facilities down there to help with realignments or dampening of certain energy fields that are occurring on this planet. And so a lot of us are going there because in different pyramids around the world, on the underneath where humans don't know about how far down it goes, a lot of our bodies that we came here from are stored there. So
Really? We've
been going down there and doing work.
So, okay, now this is kind of an important question to ask because I've been doing a little bit of research, and I'm going to play my interview with Dr. Sam here after we're done. But I've been reading that there are people that have claimed that the Bosnian pyramids are a hoax. But you're ready to say that they're not a hoax, and in fact they're actually fairly important. Is that correct?
Well, there's tours that doctor gives where he shows a certain type of stone and how there's a connection with that stone to an underground water source more than 200 feet underneath where they're standing at in that room. And it channels energy when the water comes through there and you sit around the rock and you can harness that energy. Well, what I can say is that you can't actively see that up there where he's giving the tour at, but if you could go all the way down there to where that water source is and what it's running around down there, you would visibly see it, feel it, hear it, and know it. I mean, it's alive down there.
Interesting stuff. Now, he's actually based out of Houston, and you're not far from there. Have you met him at all?
No, I haven't.
Interesting stuff. Synchronicities, they're abounding everywhere today, Thomas.
Well, and I can tell you, one of the plans, the Dark Cabal, if you will, who's no longer in charge of anything, one of their plans was to turn most people into zombies or create all sorts of chaos here. That's what they were going to do. And so one of the things that their technology uses is mercury. And with all these spiraled light bulbs that save so much electricity that everybody has gone to, they now have mercury everywhere because there's mercury in every one of them bulbs. So they were all set up, and it was, you can find the video on YouTube. There was a Indian spiritual man, a Mayan or Incan. He talks about the pyramids and what they do. He said the pyramids are designed to counter this very type of energy that they are trying to release. And so we will be using the pyramids as a device on the 21st of December to stop them from doing what they're going to do.
That's interesting. So on the winter solstice, the pyramids will be activated to.
Well, this is last year, December 21st, 2012.
Oh, last year. So when that happened, were you able to? Did that discharge the mercury effect, so to speak?
It's if you look at the pyramid as an upside down funnel, what it does is it gathers all the energy that's being introduced into the environment, and it shoots it directly into space at a focus point, just like a funnel would do. Because as the liquid goes through a funnel, it's not moving very, very fast. But as it gets towards that neck of the funnel, that eye of the funnel, it starts going really fast, and you have some force out the other side of the funnel. And so that's essentially what the pyramids do, if you know how to use them correctly. And there are people still here in this reality that know how to use them accurately.
Interesting.
So that's, you can find the video on that on YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Thomas, let's get you back on here again one of these days. Let's stay in touch, and if you run across any information that Sasquatch is sharing with you that you think that would be important for us to learn about, just shoot me an email. We'll get you on and we'll do this again, okay?
That sounds like a winner to me.
All right, well, thank you. Really enjoyed this, and I know that you're in a lot of pain and you're not doing well with your body and your nervous system, but do your best to take care of yourself, and thanks again for all the work you do and for coming on and sharing it, all right?
I was glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Okay, bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
Thomas. All right. That is Thomas Hughes, Sasquatch experiencer, and a lot more. A lot more than that. Bet you weren't planning on hearing all that today, were you? Interesting stuff, huh? All right, so let's go into the next phase here. This is interesting how these synchronicities just sort of converge around Bigfoot. And I had no idea when I planned this show. I had no idea that Thomas had actually soul traveled into the pyramids in Bosnia. I had no idea. I guess it's all part of the master plan now, and I'm just playing my part. All right, so this is myself and Dr. Sam Samir Osmanagich. We talked yesterday, and he's the Indiana Jones of the Bosnian pyramids, and he basically gave me a pretty thorough understanding and explanation about what's happening there and how they were discovered and what they are doing with their discovery. And he's also just down the road in Houston, like our first guest, Thomas. So, by the way, just to let you know what I go through in order to keep this show going, I'm having a major problem with my main computer. It's significant. And in the middle of the show, it completely froze, which meant that I cannot access the chat room or anything. Now, in order for me to circumnavigate it freezing and every function freezing, I actually call in through a separate device. I call in through my iPad because I don't want this to be interrupted, right? So I can talk. Now, that means that even though I'm calling in through my iPad, my computer is frozen, and I've got to get back into the show. So what do? I bring out my Samsung Notes, and I get into the show via my Samsung Notes. So here we are. I've got 3 computers up and running and patched into Blog Talk Radio because I am committed. I'm a professional. And I'm going to bring you the next part of the show. Here's myself and Dr. Sam Osmanagich, the Indiana Jones of the Bosnian pyramids. And now I'd like to welcome my next guest on today's version of Free Association Radio, the Friday FARcast. He goes by Dr. Sam. His full name is Dr. Sam Samir Osmanagich. He's a PhD. He's a totally fascinating guy. He's part industrialist and part professor and part modern-day Indiana Jones. He's Bosnian by birth. He owns a manufacturing company in Houston, and he's one of the leading explorers when it comes to pyramids in Bosnia. And I think I first ran across him via Red Ice Radio and a number of articles that came out about a month ago. I wanted to track him down. He's just down the freeway from me here in Texas. He's agreed to be on the show. So thank you very much, Dr. Sam, for coming on.
Thank you for the interest.
So I guess where I'd like to start is, obviously you have a pretty deep background in archaeology. You studied Mayan civilization and culture in college. You've written 10 books, 2 of which now are available on Kindle and Amazon, and we can talk about more of those a little bit later in the show. So you've had this as an interest for such a long time. When did you begin to find out that there was something very interesting happening in your own backyard in Bosnia?
I have been researching the pyramid phenomenon for 25 years. Like you said, my PhD is in Mayan pyramids and temples, but also I've researched them from China to Peru, Bolivia, Mauritius, Canary Islands, Egypt, Sudan, southern France, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, all over the world. And I have concluded that everything they teach us about the ancient history in the pyramids is actually wrong. They are telling us that the pyramids are built only in Egypt and Mexico. And that's wrong. They are built all over the planet. They are telling us that the Egyptian pyramids were built as tombs for the pharaohs. Again, wrong. No mummies of the pharaohs in the biggest, oldest, most superior Egyptian pyramids. So I started my personal investigation of this phenomenon all over the planet. And after I've seen most of them, in the spring of 2005, I went back to my home country of Bosnia. I went to visit the local museum in the little town of Visoko, which is 20 miles northwest from the capital city of Sarajevo. But what really caught my attention was regularly shaped hill. I was looking, even though it was covered, by soil and vegetation, I could see four sides, triangle faces, obvious corners, the same slope from the bottom to the top. I took the compass, and the compass showed me that the sides of the pyramids perfectly match cardinal points, east, west, north, south. And then I immediately knew that it was not a natural hill, but the artificial structure after thousands of years, of course, covered by soil and vegetation. The same case like in China, Mexico, Honduras, or Guatemala. So, since 2005, I've established and run a non-profit foundation called Archaeological Park Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, and it has become the most active archaeological site in the world.
Interesting. So this starts in 2005. Fast forward, it's 2013, almost 2014. What kind of work have you actually done on the site? Physical work in terms of excavation and or getting beneath the surface of that hill mound to see if there's any deeper structure within that site?
Well, every year we organize international summer camp for volunteers. This year, 2013, we had 450 volunteers from 46 countries in the world. Last year, another 400. Before that, 500, 450. So far, almost 2,000 volunteers from 55 countries who have been working under supervision of our experts, archaeologists, geologists, geophysicists, pedologists, paleontologists. So, among other things, we have been removing the soil, the dirt, in certain sections. And below 3 to 4 feet of soil, we have been finding regularly shaped blocks, rectangular, square, and first, second, third, fourth row of blocks. When we analyze the samples of those blocks in 6 different institutes for materials, Bosnia, France, and Italy, they all confirm that it was artificially made concrete. Now, when it comes to concrete, there are 2 properties that determine the quality of the concrete. One is hardness. The harder the material, the better the quality. And the second one is the water absorption. Less absorption, better the quality. And guess what? This ancient-made concrete is much better quality than what we can make today. Our concretes in 21st century are in the range from 10 to 60 megapascals. And this concrete goes up to 134 megapascals in hardness. The same thing goes for water absorption. So obviously the ancient new formula that we have lost over time, how to make excellent quality concrete. So the whole pyramid, the biggest one we named the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. The whole pyramid has been covered in concrete blocks. Inside the pyramid we have inner passageways. Below the pyramids we have underground tunnel network. So far we have discovered 5 pyramids covered by dirt, which we named the pyramids of the sun, moon, dragon, earth, and love. And this network of prehistorical tunnels and chambers ran for tens of miles. So this project brings to the surface 7 elements that will forever change the view of our ancient history. Number 1, these are the first pyramids in Europe. Number 2, they are the biggest, the largest on the planet. The Great Pyramid of Egypt, for example, is 450 feet. The Sun Pyramid in Bosnia, over 700 feet. The element number 3, the orientation of the sides toward the cardinal points, is the most precise on the planet. Number 4, we are finding the best quality concrete. Number 5, these are the oldest pyramids on the planet. Just this summer, 2013, between 2 layers of concrete blocks, like in a sandwich, they found a piece of organic material that was a fossilized leaf. It happened to get there during the construction. We've analyzed this organic material in Kiev, Ukraine, by the C14 radiocarbon method. The age 29,200 years, plus minus 400 years. So we are pushing back the known history of advanced societies for at least 20,000 years. The element number 6, below the pyramids, is the most extensive underground tunnel network. Element number 7, in those tunnels, we've been discovering a huge ceramic blocks. They are reaching 2, 4, 8 tons, and this summer we've discovered another block of more than 25 tons, or more than 55,000 pounds. So these 7 elements changes the history as we know it.
Yeah. So when you say that the blocks or that leaf has been carbon dated at would you say around 25,000 BC? Is that what you would say?
What I said was 29,200 before present. So it's almost 30,000.
Almost 30,000 years, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that actually kind of lines up a little bit with what John Anthony West and Robert Schoch found with the Sphinx in terms of maybe existing at a parallel time. Have you had any conversation with West or Schoch around this and compared any notes?
West was not there. Schoch was there at the very beginning. Schoch had the opinion that it's probably natural hills. However, the last 8 years after his visit, he made so many discoveries. And, when it comes to the science, you have to have specific scientific disciplines, tests, analysis, radiocarbon dating. So this is what we have. The Bosnian State Institute for Geodesy came with their team of expert scientific instruments. They were measuring the orientation of the northern side. So far we thought that the best orientation is the northern side of the Great Pyramid of Egypt. The error from the perfect north, 0 degrees and 2 minutes. And the error of Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, 0 degrees, 0 minutes, and 12 seconds, the most precise in the world. When it comes to the concrete, geologists like Schoch and some others, they come, they see, they give their opinions. Opinions are fine, but they are irrelevant in science. What counts is the scientific analysis. For example, famous and the leading world expert in ancient concrete, Professor Dr. Joseph Davidovich of France, in his Institute of Geopolymers, has analyzed the samples from Bosnian Valley of the Pyramids. His conclusion, this was a form of ancient concrete. The next thing, we have the underground tunnels. The way to figure out the age was finding organic material above certain structures. And after 8 radiocarbon datings, they all take us in the area between 21 and 32,000 years, telling us that before this cycle of humanity, which started with Sumer 8,000 years ago, and Babylon, Akkad, Assyria, ancient Egypt, ancient India, we did have another cycle. And that's exactly what you mentioned, the Sphinx and the biggest Giza pyramids, Cheops, Khafre, and Meseret. They are all older than 12,000 years. And in the last 15 years, we've been having so many sensational archaeological discoveries. For example, on the bottom of the Pacific floor, 13 underwater cities are discovered. They are known as the Yonaguni monuments, older than 12,000 years. In eastern Lebanon, Baalbek, the blocks of over 1,200 tons are there installed in some structures that are not done by known civilization. And finally, the new datings on all these Egyptian, Mexican, and Peruvian pyramids will take us before the end of the last ice age, which happened 12,000 years ago. So the history of humanity is not evolution like what they claim now. 10,000 years ago, we are primitive cavemen, and today we are the most developed, the most intelligent, the most beautiful. No, we are not. This is just the last cycle of humanity. Before this one, there was another one, and another one, and another one. We know at least for 5 such episodes in humanity.
It's interesting, the whole notion of these extremely ancient cycles of civilization. It almost ties in a little bit to what the Hopi talk about in their creation myth, with the destruction of the first world and the second world and the third world and so on. Maybe that's what they're actually alluding to when they talk about the fourth world and the fifth world, are these ancient cycles and epochs of civilization. But West also talks about this a little bit, and I asked him a question about Atlantis, and his theory about Atlantis, which I'd like to get your opinion on, was that it wasn't just located in one central area, say in the Caribbean or off the coast of the Aegean, but was a planetary experience. A, what's your take on Atlantis, and does this line up with some of your Bosnian data?
First of all, there was a big land, a big island or small continent in the middle of the Atlantic, and it's proven in 1940s. The Russian submarines were there. They found, some organic materials on the beaches 3,000 meters below the ocean level, and those datings took them 12,500 and 18,000 years back. So we do have 2 known periods in the middle of the Atlantic. But also I agree that that was widespread civilization, several of them, well developed in Northern Africa, in Pacific, where we also had some huge islands. And today, of course, they are under the sea level. And the Gobi Desert was Gobi Desert today. There was advanced civilization there. Now, when it comes to Europe, the new science called anthropological genetics knows exactly the migrations and the age of the oldest people in Europe. The oldest are Basques in Spain and southern France, 55,000. The second oldest, the Central Balkan, where Bosnia is located, 38,000. And finally, the third oldest, Ukraine, around the Black Sea. So we do have those cultural oases extremely old. In the case of Bosnian builders, we can see that not only that they could manipulate with huge quantities of construction material, but they also knew the energy sources, probably better than we do. The first 5 years of our project, 2005-2010, we spent proving that we have construction complex. We have the shape of the pyramid, perfect orientation, artificially made concrete, inner passageways, underground tunnels, 5 structures. Now, I know that there is a lot of hesitation in the mainstream science to accept this discovery because it's going to change everything they've been teaching us. The PhDs are not good, professorships, the way that they are teaching us now. So I know that a lot of problems there. But then we don't want to spend another 100 years trying to convince everyone that we do have pyramids in Bosnia. We had to move forward. In our case, it meant we had to find out what was the purpose of Bosnian pyramids. And for that, archaeologists, Egyptologists, geologists cannot help us. Nobody teaches them about the real purpose of pyramids. So we look for the help of the experts for energy phenomena, physicists, electrical engineers. In 2010, we had a physicist from Zagreb, Croatia, Dr. Mizrak, who came with his team to measure electromagnetic fields. First on nearby hills, no anomalies. We were going around the Sun Pyramid, no anomalies. However, when we came to the very top, the central part of the plateau, we detected and measured electromagnetic field in a radius of 13 feet, frequency of 28 kilohertz. We got outside this radius, no measurements. We got back, the measurement was there. It meant the field doesn't go left or right, but it goes straight up. 3 months later, Serbian electrical engineer, Goran Marjanovic, confirmed that measurement. Later that summer, experts from Finland, Heikki Savolainen, sound engineer, and from Italy, Professor De Bertolis, they confirmed the same readings. So in science, when you have 4 teams independently getting the same results, it is called scientific verification of the phenomenon. And what is the phenomenon? This continuous energy, electromagnetic beam, going through the top of the pyramid. We measure it during the summer, spring, fall, winter. It's always there. So it means the pyramids have been producing this energy beam for thousands of years. And then on the very top, we measured also the ultrasound beam of the same frequency, 28 kilohertz. Now, we know from some other references that this frequency is ideal for the levitation process. So the ancients were getting those particular frequencies because they knew that somehow they're beneficial to our bodies. And then we measured the strength of the signal. What you would expect is if the source of the energy is within the pyramid or below, that as you move away from the pyramid, the signal should be getting weaker. But it happens otherwise. On the top of the pyramid, we measure it 10 feet higher, 10 feet higher. Every time we lift this antenna, the signal was getting stronger. Now, it meant that theoretically, this signal can go anywhere in our solar system or in our galaxy. What did it mean? It meant that there is a possibility to make an energy bridge between any 2 planets, our and some other, in the solar system or any other star system. So once you establish the energy bridge, then it is possible to move frequencies, to move information. And the pyramid is becoming very powerful communication device. So I would say that our research in Bosnia, which is interdisciplinary scientific research, is opening a complete new door in our science. And even though today some scientists, Egyptologists, archaeologists from Egypt, China, Peru, Mexico, US, or Germany do not understand us, 20 or 50 years from now, they will follow our path.
Well, they seem to be very invested in holding up their Darwinian model for a number of reasons. And this obviously explodes that model and blows it up to pieces and thus invalidates a lot of the scientific process and scientific inquiry that they've invested their lives and a lot of money and their diplomas and all the stuff that you've already mentioned. So this is obviously going to take some time because that group will not let go of their predispositions that easily or quickly. Have you been down into those some of those chambers or catacombs or tunnels?
Of course. Now, what we are seeing in the underground tunnels, and we can trace at least two civilizations. The first one who built this vast network, and the second one who came much later and decided to close all of them, fill them with the filling material. So what we actually do from the entrance, which is approximately 1.4 miles from the Sun Pyramid, we've been cleaning those existing prehistorical tunnels, and then we put the wooden support as a protection for the volunteers and researchers and tourists, and then we move towards the Sun Pyramid. Even though this is a labyrinth, we use compass and we clean the tunnels that lead us in direction of south, southeast, which is the direction of the pyramid. Every year, we clean approximately 200 to 300 yards. The last 6-7 years, we have cleaned and secured about 1,200 yards. And we still have some way to go to the pyramid, but in the meantime, we have discovered 6 chambers. They range from 300 to 500 square feet. The height of the ceiling goes anywhere from 4 feet to 12 feet. The airflow is perfect. Deeper we go, we breathe better and better. We have noticed that the number of tourists and visitors who talk about the benefits of visiting those tunnels. For example, people with asthma, when they go inside, they start breathing very well. They go outside, they don't need those air pumps anymore. People with some type of allergies, they go inside, outside, allergies are gone. They come with the pains are gone. So we wanted to find a scientific explanation. And look what we have found so far in our measurements. Number one, the concentration of negative ions is very high in the tunnels. The medical science knows that negative ions kill viruses and bacteria. They basically clean our blood. In your office in Austin, in my office in Houston, the concentration of negative ions is very low, about 100 negative ions per cubic centimeter. We go outside to the downtown, 400. We go in the village, out in the open, 800. We go by the river, 1,500. We go to the mountain in the forest, 3,000 to 5,000. And in the tunnels on the Bosnian pyramids, 35,000 to 40,000. So it seems that somebody was building an underground healing facility. So that was element number one. Element number two, in those tunnels, we also measured this beneficial electromagnetic frequency of 28 kilohertz and ultrasound, which we cannot hear, but we can measure it on 28 kilohertz frequency. The next, the fourth element, in the tunnels we also measure ultra-low frequencies, which are called infrasound in science. You see, our ears can hear from 10 hertz to 20 kilohertz. Everything above 20 kilohertz is ultrasound. Everything below 10 hertz is infrasound. And in those tunnels we measure 7.83 hertz infrasound. In science, this particular frequency is called Schumann resonance. Namely, everything in nature resonates. Our planet resonates at 7.83. It's been like that for millions of years. All the living beings, plants, animals, humans, resonates at 7.83. This is the best frequency for our physical, mental, and spiritual abilities. And it was like that until 1990. After that, due to the development of the HART project by U.S. government, laptops, computers, cell phones, microwaves, a lot of that electromagnetism is emitted to the ionosphere. And this electromagnetism magnetism is affecting the resonance of our planet. By 94, the resonance was from 7.83, it went to 8.5. Last year, 2012, 14.5. This year, 2013, 15.1. And this is very bad, because the higher the frequency of the planet, it affects our brain waves directly in a very negative way. You see, the lower the frequency, the better for us. When we sleep, from 0.5 to 4 hertz. When we are meditating, 5 to 7 is called theta state. When we are very relaxed, 7 to 14 is called alpha. And Schumann resonance is exactly in alpha range. It is best for our memory, creation, creativity, things like that. But when we are awakened, 14, 15, 20 hertz, when we do some stuff very active, aggressively, 20, 30 hertz, and by going to higher frequencies, it will be a lot of pressure to our bodies, to our brains. We are becoming more nervous and more aggressive. And guess what? Bosnian pyramid complex is the guardian of the best frequency on the planet for us, 7.83. So this project is not only changing the history, but it has the potential to change our future for better.
Well, that's good news. A lot of times the pyramids, especially in Egypt, are generally aligned to Sirius, occasionally to Orion. Have you noticed any fixed star alignments with the pyramids in Bosnia?
Now, of course, Robert Boal, he became very known with the idea that 3 Giza pyramids do align with the 3 stars of Orion belt. However, it seems that no matter how they match those 3 stars, the third one is a little bit off. So, according to Andrew Collins, it seems that the star system of Cygnus better match those 3 Egyptian pyramids. Of course, nobody would build a pyramid just to match certain alignments in the night stars. But in the case of Bosnian pyramids, the first question is how many pyramids were originally built? Right now we can see 5 of them because we have done work on 5 of them. For example, on the Sun Pyramid, we have over 30 archaeological trenches. On the Moon Pyramid, 45, and so on and so forth. But on the topographical maps, we can see that 2 more hills are rather regular. And if it was 7, then we could talk about, 7 sisters or Pleiades. So it is a possibility. And I would say that yes, probably on one level, the layout and the number of pyramids could give us a hint of their original builders, or at least of their original architects.
Mm-hmm. What about any similarities or commonalities that you might have found with the Bosnian pyramids and some of the work that you've done in the Mayan world? Have you found anything that links the 2 of them together?
Well, the world of the past was the world of the pyramids. Now, we do have some common elements. First of all, is geometry. We do have a geometry in the pyramid. Secondly, they are almost always 4-sided pyramids. Number 3, we do have orientation, most commonly to the cardinal points. All Chinese pyramids are oriented to the coast north. All old Egyptian pyramids, north. Most of the Peruvian, some of the Mexican, and all of Cahokia pyramids are oriented to the north, like the Bosnian pyramids. The next element is the water. We always have major rivers near those pyramids because water was so important. Water above the ground, rivers, and underground, water streams. The next element, sacred geometry. They would always incorporate the numbers that belong to sacred geometry. For example, number pi, 3.14, or number C, 1.618, the results of those numbers are irrational, endless numbers. For example, number pi is 3.141592653588, and so on. In the case of Bosnian pyramids, we have base from number 2 and number 3, which are also irrational numbers. In the case of Bosnian pyramids, 3 main pyramids, the sun, the moon, and dragon. When we connect their tops, they form equilateral triangle, a perfect triangle. The distance between their tops is 2,170 meters, approximately 1.3 miles. This is not a coincidence. The Mother Nature does not make hills with 4 sides, triangular faces, the perfect orientation, and they form perfect triangle. Obviously, it is work of intelligent hands. The next common element is, of course, the local construction material. In Peru, they would be using adobe bricks. In Guatemala, volcanic stones. In Mexico, sandstone granite. In Egypt, limestone and granite. In China, sandstone and granite. In Bosnia, they were using material from the tunnels. Namely, they built those tunnels in material which we call conglomerate. And conglomerate is nothing but pebbles, rocks, sand. So, when they were removing all this material, they used it all up to build the concrete blocks. All they needed was a binder. When we make concrete today, as a binder we use cement. They did not have cement, but they melted the clay. And clay is in abundance around. So, it's always local material. So these are similarities. Of course, there are some differences when it comes to age, when it comes to sizes, when it comes to function. And what I would do, instead of what mainstream science does, they call them Mayan pyramids, they call them Pharaonic pyramids, they call them Chinese emperors pyramids. What I'm saying, I'm proposing another classification. I'm calling them original pyramids and the replicas. Original are the oldest, the biggest, the most superior, with the energy properties. And the replicas, when the most recent civilizations came, the pyramids were already there. They tried to make replica, but they did not have a knowledge or technology to repeat the task, so they were using mud bricks or similar inferior material. When it comes to the original pyramids, I mentioned energy properties. We've been proving that Bosnian pyramids were actually built as a huge energy machines. And we do know that, for example, Chukuka pyramid in Mexico, in a city called Chichen Itza, the Mayan pyramid, the tourist from El Salvador, when he was filming his family in 2009, he filmed at the same time energy beam coming through the top of that pyramid. And Japanese geophysicists were in Egypt at the beginning of the 1970s with their equipment. They concluded that the second biggest pyramid, Khafre pyramid, every 10 minutes changes the energy properties, and they concluded that it was actually not only a structure but energy machine. So, it gives me enough information to conclude that the oldest pyramids were actually huge and very powerful energy machines. But later on, that knowledge has been lost.
Yeah, it seems that way. If you were to give us your best case and wildest scenario, just kind of let it all hang out, let it rip, who do you think built them, where did they come from, and where did they go?
I'm a scientist, so everything I do, I base on scientific arguments. So far, we can see that the builders could manipulate with the energy better than we do. They knew natural energy sources. They knew that the shape of the pyramid is the most powerful geometrical shape. They knew energy properties of our planet. Our planet is nothing but the energy ball. There are energy flows within our planet, and they go north-south, east-west. When you build a pyramid, four-sided pyramid, when you orient it the cardinal points, immediately you have initialized energy flow within the pyramid. The ancients knew that. The ancients knew how to make these focused energy beams, electromagnetic, infrasound, ultrasound, all other energy phenomena, and frankly, I don't think that we have determined how many more different types of energies are there, because we don't have scientific instruments for them. So the ancients knew how to use natural resources. They knew the power of shape of the pyramid. So they were more advanced than us. Because on the conceptual level, look what we do today. In the last couple of 100 years, we've been using coal, which is based for dirt industry. We've been using oil and gas, very limited sources. We've been using those very expensive hydro, thermal, nuclear power plants, very expensive transformers and power lines. You go near power lines, the electromagnetism is simply killing your brain cells. So it's very dangerous the way we do that. And very expensive energy. The ancients were using, unlimited sources, wireless energy transportation. They are much smarter than us. And I would say they were building the machine, the pyramids were machines, which they use for the communication, teleportation, heating, healing, climate adjustment. Of course, warfare. So, on that level, they were in front of us. Now, who are they? I don't know. But what I do know is that the oldest pyramids are the most superior pyramids, meaning that knowledge has been brought to us.
Have you found any kind of examples of language or any parts of their culture that they've left behind besides the blocks and the tunnels?
Right. Now, this September, after our scientific conference in Sarajevo, we did have a museum exhibition in the town of Visoko where we've shown artifacts that we discovered this season, and we can see on some of them, on some of the blocks, on some of the plates, carvings. Some of them are coming very frequently. Obviously, those carvings remind us to some of the oldest writings on the planet. Some of them are very similar to runic writings or runes, which is the oldest language writing in Europe. Some of them are very similar to Sanskrit, from the East, India, and so on. But these are much, much older. They are over 20,000 years old. Obviously, somebody literate was in that area over 20,000 years ago. I think that's a great discovery because it's telling us about the age of this area. But I don't think that this was that there were symbols from the original builders. I don't think that to measure one civilization that we have to have the writing, because writing is one way to communicate, but I would say rather inferior way. I mean, when I have a text in front of me, when I read it, when you read it, when 10 other people read it, I mean, there are probably 10 or 15 different ways of understanding, due to our skills, education, things like that. The best way to communicate is, of course, to move, to exchange your thoughts telepathically. And if you do that telepathically, you don't need writing. Writing is something very inferior. I don't think the builders were using any form of writing. The next thing, we do find some tools, we do find some, even artistic objects made from granite. I don't think that they belong to the original builders. They were simply much more advanced than us, and in one aspect, especially mental and spiritual. I mean, they were probably able to make things happen. They were creating things with the power of their mind. And there's a knowledge, if we have those abilities, there's a knowledge that we have forgotten because we do not teach our kids to develop spiritual senses. The ancients knew that besides our 5 physical senses, there are 30 spiritual senses. First of all, every physical has a counterpart spiritual realm, and that includes telepathy, teleportation, healing with the touch, things of that nature. So 30 of them. In our education process, we don't teach our kids those things. As a matter of fact, if somebody has the gift, then the surrounding, people, they attack them, they're laughing at them, and so basically they are reducing us to our five physical senses, which is a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. If people want to find out more about your work, they can go to the Bosnian pyramidofthesun.com. Is that correct?
That's correct. So, Bosnian pyramidofthesun.com. They can get all the info. So I would use this opportunity to invite people to come to this beautiful country. After 20-something years in Houston, I moved back to Sarajevo, and this is a huge project. And people go there, especially in those tunnels, in chambers, around those megaliths. You know what they tell us? People from Brazil, Chile, New Zealand, India, Jordan, Norway, Germany tell us the same thing. We feel like we came home. And they are right. They did come home because they did come to the best energy field, to the best frequencies for their bodies. So we invite people to come as tourists, volunteers, researchers, media reps, because they have something to see and feel there. We've been changing the way how the traditional science, archaeology, history, anthropology works. This project is open for everyone. No secrets, no elite science, the cultural heritage that belongs to everyone. So if people are thinking of coming, on our website they have even travel packages that they last for a week, rather inexpensive. They can see all the pyramids. In other phenomenon also, the mysterious stone balls of Bosnia, some prehistorical towns. So a lot to see in this small and beautiful country.
So you have tours that go to the pyramids, and people can explore them and check them out with you. You're also the author of 10 books. Your two latest books are Ancient History from Beyond the Veil and Pyramids Around the World and Lost Pyramids of Bosnia. They can find those books on Amazon, and there is Kindle editions if you are living in the 21st century. When is your next trip? When are you planning on going again?
I'm going back tomorrow. I'm going back to Bosnia tomorrow. And during the winter time, I usually promote the project. The last 4 weeks, I was in Singapore, in their science center. I was in Hanoi, Vietnam. I was in Colombo, Sri Lanka. I was in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates. And during the spring, going to Slovenia, Croatia, Germany, Norway, Sweden, and other countries. So I tell people about this. But now I have a big help, 1,600 volunteers. They also talk about it. They do their blogs. They do their lectures. So I think it's becoming like a movement, a very positive one. And let me remind you on 5 names of the pyramid: Sun, Moon, Earth, Dragon, and Love. Pyramid of Love. You don't have any pyramids in the world by such name, and a lot of archaeologists are attacking me because of that. They're saying, why you are giving such romantic names to the pyramids? They don't understand that the words are very powerful, and the most powerful is the word love. And once you name a huge structure, the name love, the idea is to color this volume of pyramids with the love. And this is the type of messages we want to send out.
Okay, well, it sounds great. It sounds really interesting, and I look forward to seeing what more of the mystery you excavate as time goes on. So thank you again, Dr. Sam, for being on the show today. And let me just give out the websites one more time. That's Osmanagich.com, where you can find out more about Dr. Sam, and also the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun, correct? The other website. Okay, very good. Thanks again for coming on, and hope to have you on again one of these days when we get some more information and we can learn all about your latest breakthroughs.
All right. Thank you for the interest. God bless.
All right. So that was Dr. Sam Osmanagich. Pretty interesting interview. And I think the audio actually turned out okay. we were able to put it all together and pump the volume and make it happen. I'm in the chat room right now. Let's see, we've got listening on one computer, chatting on another. There seems to be something going on with our computers in this world. Lots of people having computer problems. Lots of people having problems getting online, staying online. What is that all about? Meanwhile, my tablets seem to be just fine. Just fine in the tablet world. So that pretty much does it for today's show, Friday the 13th. I'll have some new content up on Gaiam TV. I was there on Monday, and I taped 4 episodes, Monday and Tuesday. And I was there the following week taping 3 other episodes. So there's going to be 7 episodes of the 11th House coming up on Gaiam TV. If you have not signed up for Gaiam TV, I highly recommend it. It's a ton of great content there, besides what I'm doing. I think what I'm doing is pretty good. That's my take on it. I'm going to have the first show, I think it airs this week, which is the birth date of Jesus, the 9/11 birthday. I found some more information around it. It's pretty interesting. And then I have a show lined up for Pluto and Capricorn, and another show about Aquarius. And then I've got the astrological forecast for all signs and an overview for 2014. All that's coming up on Blog Talk Radio, Gaiam TV. I get the two mixed up sometimes. So that's it. Got a big weekend planned. I'm taking my son to his robot competition. Yeah, that's right. He's part of a team that programs a robot to do things on a table. It's all supported and run by Lego. And I guarantee you at some point in time, Lego will run the world. Lego will run the world. Trust me on that. It will become the Acme Corporation that we saw in the Roadrunner cartoons. Okay, that's it. Once again, thank you for Thomas Hughes and Dr. Sam Osmanagich. I'll be back on Monday with the mashup, and I'll be here on Wednesday with Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm going to try to get William Stick Evers back on the show and see if we can get into this whole Bitcoin, Litecoin thing that's happening. I think that's one of those coins, whoever emerges, I think is going to be the new currency. That's my take. When it all shuts down and we go into the reset, that one of those currencies will emerge as the new currency. It's happening. And there are people in the Bitcoin world that are going to be extremely wealthy as a result of this. Okay, that's it. I'll see you all on Monday. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. Go to Gaiam TV and check the scene out there. And let me see if I can dial up the show tune. I think I can do it. Since I'm using all these different computers, I've got to navigate not just the astrological matrix, but the virtual matrix as well. All right, we found it.